Welcome to Messy Liberation, the podcast that dives deep into feminism, business, and personal growth. I'm Becky Mollenkamp.
And I'm Taina Brown. Get ready for another messy conversation through the eyes of two intersectional feminist coaches.
Let's get messy.
Good day to you.
Good day, fine sir, fine ma'am, wherever you are listening. We're going to talk centers, one battle after another, maybe other stuff. Before we do, I just want to quickly say, and I'm sure you may want to as well, that we are not unaware of what's happening in Minneapolis. The murder of Renee Good, ICE thugs, Gestapo, whatever we want to call them, taking over. It's abhorrent, disgusting, terrifying. There's lots of folks talking about these things. Our show has a bit of lag time, as was evident by releasing the Venezuela story that we did on Monday, days after Renee Good was murdered. So I think, our thought right now is like, we know all of that and we're as overwhelmed as everyone else. And like, I just don't know that I have capacity at this moment to talk more about it.
Yeah.
And so it feels good to talk about something else that's in the news, that's interesting, that still talks about liberatory ideas. But I just wanted to acknowledge the big elephant in the room, because that is there and looming. And by the time this airs, probably even worse than it already is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Enough about that. It's awful. It's awful. It's awful. It's awful. We could do a whole episode on it, but by the time it would run, it would be outdated. So we're going to talk about sinners and one battle after another. And I don't know if you watched His and Hers, but that's a potential thing too. So we're going to talk some entertainment. One of the reasons being, you saw both One Battle After Another and Sinners, I believe, in the theater as they came out. And I did not. I don't go to the theater anymore.
I saw One Battle After Another I saw at home. Sinners I saw in the theater.
Why did I think you saw One Battle After Another in the theater? Because I thought you were like, I had to step out of the theater. You had to step out of the room while you guys were watching.
No.
You texted me.
No, we did see it in the theater.
Yes, because you were like,
You're
I had
right.
to step out of the theater.
Fuck.
Yeah. Anyway, you watched them when they were released. I don't go to theaters anymore because I'm old and I have a kid and I don't know. But they're now both, I believe, both on HBO. They're both available on streaming services. You can find them online on streaming services. And I didn't have to pay to download them. So I finally watched them both and had lots of thoughts. And now I'm like, okay, now you wanted to talk about them when they came out. And I was like, I haven't seen them. So now we can talk about them. And then His and Hers, which is on Netflix, just came out. And the social media world's a buzz about it. And it also speaks to some race issues. So I thought it might be interesting. So where do we start? Sinners came out first. One Battle After Another was after. Do we start with a comparison of the two? Do we talk about each movie individually? I'm most intrigued, honestly, about One Battle After Another because you texted me as you were seeing it saying like, I had to step out. I'm so triggered. And I'm kind of curious about that. So I don't know where you want to start, but that's where my greatest intrigue lies at the moment.
Yeah. I don't know where to I did watch His and Hers. I watched it last night.
Also, I guess we should say spoiler alerts. I'm sure we're going to talk about completely through the plots of all of these things. So if you haven't seen any of them, come back after you do. So Sinners, One Battle After Another, His and Hers. If you haven't seen any of these things and you want to, pause now.
Stop listening right now.
Yeah. Okay. There. We've done our due diligence. Nobody can get mad at us now. So where do you want to start?
You know what? Let's start with His and Hers, since I did watch it last night.
Let's
and it does take place in Georgia.
It does. Dahlonega. Dahlonega. I don't know how you say it. Dahlonega. Darn it. See, I even already have it wrong. Which is like not a suburb of Atlanta, I don't think, but it's sort of just north of there. Right?
It's a couple hours north.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So not a suburb. And kind of I get the impression it's a whiter area.
Yeah.
Yeah. And probably a more conservative, if I'm not wrong, because it's outside of Atlanta. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know that
we passed when I didn't realize it took place in Dahlonega and the Atlanta area when I first watched it, when it first started. And there was one scene in the beginning where they're driving around the Dahlonega town square. And I was like, that kind of looks like Dahlonega, because we drive through there, or we would when we lived in Georgia, to get to the cabin that we would rent. We would try to do it like once or twice a year, these cabins in the North Georgia mountains. And Dahlonega is like the closest big town to those cabins. And so sometimes we go in to just like sit at a coffee shop, or for the holidays, like they do it up really well. But yeah, it was interesting. I know you said in the book the main female character is not Black.
The main character and her mom are both white in the book. So I think the book, basically, everyone's white from what I can tell. I
Mhm.
have not read the book, so I want to be clear about that. It's an Alice Feeney book, I believe, if I'm not mistaken by the author's name, and I've not read any of her work, so I can't speak to her or anything else. I do know Jessica Chastain is the executive producer who helped to bring this from
Hmm.
book to Netflix, and I know that there were it was intentional, obviously, to make that choice to switch the main character and her mom, from white women to Black women in the series. She remains married to a white man which was obviously in the book everyone was white. So in the Netflix series, that's the only major change around race. I don't know about Helen, the Asian woman in the show. I don't know if she was
Hmm.
Asian in the book, so I can't speak to that. But in the
Okay.
book, everyone's white. And so in this show, it was an intentional decision to change those two characters to Black women. So that's, I think, an interesting choice.
Yeah, it is an interesting choice because it is the South and it is Georgia country. If you know anything about Georgia politics, Atlanta is
As blue
blue.
as you get, exactly. It's flaming blue,
Everywhere
surrounded
else
by
is red.
flaming red. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's this
everywhere else
giant
is
blue
very
dot and
red.
otherwise
Yeah,
very red. Other than maybe Athens. Like, I think there's a couple little pockets of, like,
little
college,
dots.
but yeah. But I
Yeah,
mean, it's
yeah.
primarily, yeah.
So, I mean, that's why we still have, or they still have, I don't live there anymore. That's why they still have a Republican governor, that guy. But yeah, and so it was not as triggering as like one battle after another, or even Sinners, but it was interesting. I'm curious as to why they decided to change the race.
Well,
Do you
I
know
think it
why?
brings no, I don't know why, and I would love to read something from Jessica Chastain or others. I'm sure it's out there. I haven't done that deep dive that I sometimes do with things when I get, like, hyper fixated. But I did read a lot of discourse on Threads from other Black women who were very excited about the Netflix show and that reframing and the importance of that, particularly around the reveal at the end of the show, the surprise twist. Again, I've told you, if you listen, this is your decision. If you haven't seen the show. So the big spoiler is that the killer is actually her mother, right? And she's doing all of these killings to protect her daughter. And it
Mm-hmm.
is a representation of sort of this Black mother love that so many women that are either Black mothers or have Black mothers on Threads talking about that depiction of a Black mother making these really difficult choices
Yeah,
to protect her child in a way that's often not shown, because often we see Black mothers, as we see in One Battle After Another,
yeah,
right? Who are careless, heartless, choosing drugs over their children, choosing sex over their children, all of these sorts of depictions that we have of often of Black mothers, and to see a Black
yeah,
mother who is willing to do literally anything to protect
yeah.
her child, especially when her child is now becoming a mother, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there was these layers around, and to bring it to centers too, of this like generational trauma and healing that I think a lot of people really appreciated, and that doesn't necessarily carry that weight when it's a white mom and a white daughter.
Yeah, yeah, especially in that geographical location where there's
Well,
such a
and
history of,
yes.
like, really bad race relations and,
And
like,
then the school piece is also really important, because in the story, she sends her daughter to this very prestigious,
private
private
school.
school.
Yeah,
And she's a lowly, quote unquote, like, housemaid, right? But she's able to get her daughter into the school. She's the only Black child then in this school. And what is the dynamics, the added dynamics that brings that wouldn't be there if it was there's still the class piece that would
yeah,
exist, right?
yeah,
But it adds so much more richness and context to that part of it as well, because now you're layering in the experience of a Black girl inside of a school full of white girls,
mhm,
and that
mhm,
Mean Girls piece of it,
yeah,
the dynamics change radically. And I think
yeah,
also maybe to a degree helps explain even more the atrocities that happen, right? That are some of the reasons for the murders that are happening.
yeah,
That extra layer of misogynoir explains so much, this like sitting around laughing as a girl is sexually assaulted, that again, class may not be enough to fully explain, right? Like, I think
yeah, the
it adds a
brutality of
lot more
that.
social commentary, I felt like.
Yeah, yeah, it really takes an intersectional approach to, like,
Mhm.
how these things happen and the after effects. did not see that twist coming. Like,
No.
even up until the very, very end, I
Yeah.
was like,
Well,
I bet the actress is Tessa Thompson. I was like, I bet she orchestrated the whole thing just because of
oh,
the
I kept
way
thinking
that
it's
they
gotta be
were
something to do with
building
her.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, I bet it was her the whole
Well, and
time. I
everyone's
bet it
looking
was
going
her the
like,
whole
"It's the
time.
last episode. We've solved the crime," and there's still,
And
like
there's still like 20, 30
yeah.
minutes left.
What the fu and so you know something else must be coming, so then you
Yeah,
start
and
trying to
it's
piece
only
what it
6
would be.
episodes. And it's
Yeah,
only 6 episodes,
yeah,
so every moment counts.
yeah, and you're trying to
And
piece what
so
can it be now. Because
yeah,
that part, like, I started to have some inklings, right, before the what you think is the big reveal, which is actually only the first reveal. I had some inklings of what that might be. But then when I'm like, "Well, now there's something's going on here. Now what is it?" And then trying to figure out and I kept thinking it had to have something to do with why she was gone for a year or something,
mhm,
which really ultimately wasn't what it was. It was this
yeah,
mother. Oh, and
yeah,
it also speaks to the book does too, though. So the changing of the race doesn't matter on this piece. But the other piece that I think a lot of people are responding to is as the mom is revealing in this letter to her daughter, "Hey, I killed all these people for you." She's talking about how the reason she was able to get away with it is also just people don't look at old people. They don't look at
yeah,
women when it comes to serial
yeah,
murders, but old people can walk through life invisible, especially old
yeah,
women, right?
yeah,
Old women
yeah,
are invisible. And I
yeah.
liked that it spoke to that in
And
such a
an
really
old Black woman who is not, of a wealthy class in this kind of a town where people have vacation homes and boats and things like that. Like, no one is paying
yeah,
her
she's
any mind
well,
whatsoever.
so good because yes, Taina, because then there's that moment where they show even the girl that you're supposed to have empathy for because she was, the fat girl who was made fun of and these high school mean girls are kind of being mean to her. You see her laying on the couch being like throwing trash
Yeah,
literally in front
yeah,
of this old Black woman to be like, "You're beneath me, take my trash." So
yeah,
like that little moment was so perfect and needed to help you remove some of that empathy you had for
for
her
her.
being
Yeah,
yeah, and to
yeah.
be
Because
like, "Oh no."
yeah, the point is like they're all villains. It's just to like what degree are they villains? I have mixed feelings about the show
Okay,
because
good. Tell me.
I I think it was a smart decision to cast the main female character and her mom as Black women navigating these dynamics in North Georgia. My issues, and I don't know if it's the same in the book because I haven't read the book, my issues are with the plot.
Okay. Yeah. I there were
Like, some
issues
of
I
it
had
just
there
didn't
too.
make any sense to me. I was like, this feels really loose. Like, it feels like this part of the plot needs to be tightened up a little bit. And
Well,
so
the whole piece again that like she's gone for a year. Apparently this is supposed to be huge. Like, why do we never learn anything about that? I guess she's just holed up in her apartment depressed, which is okay, but then why make such a like I don't know, there was
thing about it, yeah.
that part was strange. There was the intentional trying to point the fingers at other people. I almost think we didn't even need that, and it was,
Yeah.
like, with the husband and stuff. I
Yeah, yeah, like, I remember there's one scene he's in the grocery store, he's buying bleach and a hammer.
yeah. Oh,
And
a lot of
by
people
that
had issues
point
with that. Yeah.
like, I had already figured out who Lexi Jones was, who her character, like, who she was. And so I was like, "Well, okay." But then it was like it was a total misdirect, but then I didn't feel like it was
Yeah. There were a lot of those things.
the
So,
best
my
way to
wanting
misdirect.
the reason I really again, like, I think for me, it was 6 episodes, they went really quickly. I thought it was fun. I thought it was easy, but I think for the purposes of the podcast and the reason I thought it might be interesting to talk with Sinners and
Yeah,
OBAA is also just that intentionality around changing the race and where I think this otherwise would have been something that would have been so easily dismissed because of so many of the things you're talking about, because
yeah,
it felt a little campy to me. It was a little, like,
yeah,
over the top, whatever. I don't think I would have been as interested if it hadn't been because of that very intentional choice to change the race of these women and what
yeah,
that brought to the story. Because
yeah.
I think it would have been a bunch of white women. I don't think it would have done
It
anything
wouldn't
for me.
have had the same impact. Do you
Yeah.
know if the female detective, if she is also a woman of color in the book?
I don't know. See, I don't know. I don't know. So
Because in the show, she's her last name is Patel, she's an Indian
yes.
woman,
Yeah.
and she's, like, the assistant detective who is on the case to
Mhm.
a white man, um, which
What I
there
did
at
read
the
in the
end.
book I did read in the book that I think she is a little less argumentative with him and a little less suspicious of him from what I think I read that I believe in the book, she's a little more, like, idolizing of him than she which that sheen wears off much more quickly in this, where she
Yeah,
moves into
yeah,
suspicion much quicker.
yeah, yeah. Like you can still see glimpses of that a little bit, like in the show, but there are those moments of suspicion because he is shady. He's shady as fuck. Like he fucking punches her in the face at the end, and then they have a moment at the very end, and I'm like, is he gonna apologize? No, of course he's not gonna
No,
apologize.
well,
A
no, but
white
that's
man just
also
literally
great, right?
punched a
Because
white or a non-white woman in the face who is his partner,
right.
and he's not gonna fucking apologize.
That's perfect though, because a white man doesn't need why would a white man apologize? Right? Like I think it's exactly right, even if it's the most annoying thing ever, it's right on.
Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting casting an Asian woman again. I don't know if in the book she was also Asian, but Helen, which is a character that is sort of that, like, what's the correct terminology here? Help me out, Taina, but like the model Asian citizen sort of thing
The
where
model minority.
yeah, with this overachieve that is the stereotype that's so often put onto Asian folks in particular, which is like you're supposed to be exceptionally smart and excel, and they put her in this role where she's showing up in that friend group as like she's the model like student at this smarty pants school, and now not only was she as the student, but now she's running that school as like,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like it was really an interesting place to make that an Asian character, whether that
yeah,
was or not. I think there were some things about it. Again, the story itself, I thought it was totally campy,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah. It
fun.
was, it was. But even Helen, like, because she plays a lesbian, like her
Oh,
character
that's
is a
right. I
lesbian.
forgot that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So then there's like the sexuality aspect, and then Rachel,
Mm,
the one who,
bisexual.
yeah, she's bisexual, and then
There's also
Zoe, the
kink.
other, huh?
There's also
There's
kink
kink. Yeah,
that they
there's
say.
kink.
Yeah.
Then she's white and she's at the school as well, but she's quote unquote on a payment plan, right? And so she's not as wealthy as like her classmates, even though she has that racial
Yeah.
privilege of being white. So there's a lot of like interesting
Hmm.
dynamics happening here because even though like Helen is, for all intents and purposes, the archetype of the model minority as a lesbian in North Georgia at a Catholic school,
It is
like there's
bucking some of that.
still, yeah,
Yeah.
there's still some like insecurity and some like identity stuff that's happening there. And
Well, and
so,
making
and you see
Zoe
her project that onto other people.
and then making Zoe white, and she's the one that is fulfilling what is often cast as the Black woman's role as a mother, which is
Yeah.
this sort of mom who seems
Deadbeat, drunk.
right, preferring to go out and be with abandoning her children, being not a good caretaker, whatever.
Yeah.
Like those, I think all of those things in this space, knowing that they made the change, at least around the other characters, feel so intentional.
Yeah.
And it just really, there's so many layers of things that speak to these issues that
Yeah.
to me make it worth watching and interesting for just noticing all of these, some of them subtle, some of them in your face, where you're like, oh wow, they're really putting it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Production wise, like a lot of really smart decisions were made. Do you know if the book takes place in Dahlonega as
It
well, or did they
does.
just,
That I do know it does.
okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's very
But again,
interesting.
remembering that I think in the book, at least those two characters are white, and maybe all of them for all I know. So
Yeah,
it does
yeah.
change.
I was gonna say, I wonder if the author is from that area, and
It'd be
so
really
I
quick to
just,
find out because her name's Alice Feeney. We can find out, where is she from? Where is she from? That's one of the first questions when you say where. She is from Brentwood, England. Very interesting that she wrote this book about Georgia. But again, we don't know.
interesting.
I don't know enough about the book to know how much of the book is reflected in the story and how much liberties were taken, right? But it is interesting to think of an English woman, trying to even decide to write something about something as specific as a small town outside of, in rural
Yeah.
Georgia.
I wonder if she's, like, vacationed there or knows people there, or I know
Maybe.
there was, like, a B&B or, like, a tea house or something that was there. I don't know if it still is, that was owned by a Brit, so I don't know if
Well,
maybe that's her. I don't know, but it's
the
it
social
felt.
pieces of it I thought were interesting.
Huh?
The social commentary part of
Yeah.
it felt
Yeah.
interesting. But I want to make sure, because I really want to hear about these other two movies. So I want to make sure we leave
Yeah.
plenty of time. So related in my mind is One Battle After Another. So Alice Feeney, by the way, is a white woman who's British, who wrote the book. Jessica Chastain is a white woman who helped to adapt it. I saw the writers for his and hers, and many of them were white. I did see a Black woman. I don't know if that was all of them, so I can't speak to all that. So it's largely white folks, I believe, who were retelling that story. Obviously, they have black actors, but mostly women. And I think they did, not from the story itself, but as far as social commentary, I felt like they did a pretty good job. right? Like, there's always room for improvement. I thought they did a pretty good job. Now let's
As
go to one
someone who's
battle.
lived in Georgia, I feel like it was quite representative of
Great.
the culture
Culturally,
there.
we're talking,
Yeah.
yeah, and commentary on that. So now we
Yeah.
go to One Battle After Another, which was written and directed by a white man, Paul Thomas Anderson, and is getting all the accolades, winning all the awards. And speaking of tropes, and here's the thing that is a struggle for me, and where I want to hear from you so desperately. There are many people, however, most of them are white, and many of them are PTA fans who are usually white men who love Paul Thomas Anderson movies. He did Boogie Nights. He did, oh, what's that?
He's the one who did Boogie Nights?
Magnolia. He's done a lot of movies that people know, and many of them are good. But he's a white man. He's married to Maya Rudolph, who is a Black woman, or she has a Black mother, or she had a white father, Black mother.
He's married to Maya Rudolph?
I love that you're learning these things. Yes, this is so exciting to tell you. Yes, he is married to Maya Rudolph.
Interesting. Okay.
Which adds another layer, right? So this book, or that movie, falls into a lot of tropes. Now, the theory is it's satire and meant to, right? It's meant to use a lot of tropes in a way that is supposed to be commentary, right? I think many people disagree on how well it succeeds at the commentary piece versus just relying on tropes. So specifically, the main character, even though she's winning all the awards for supporting character, love that, Taina Taylor, who's phenomenal. She plays Perfidia, who's like the sort of main character, but she's in the movie very little. She disappears. She's someone who leaves her child, right? She's a Black woman. She's a revolutionary. She's out there. One scene that I think is incredibly powerful as far as speaking to the trope is she's out there full pregnant, 9 months, shooting a machine gun,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With very little regard for what that might mean for her unborn child who's there as part of that very physical experience. She makes the choice to leave her child with her white boyfriend, whatever he is. She's also accused of sexually assaulting a white man, raping a white man, lockjaw. There's just a lot to the tropes. Is that what made you is that what upset you? How do you fall on that? Do you see it as satire? Can a white man do that kind of satire successfully, just generally? Like, I don't know. I felt like it fell short, but
it fell short in my mind. That's not what upset me, right?
Ooh,
Because
okay.
I think it's important to note that she is this Black woman who is raised by other Black women who have been involved in resistance movements, right? So that's all she knows, one.
And her mom, from what I could tell, sort of was like, even you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
was hardcore. I don't know if it was her mom, the women in her.
Yeah,
that were
and
raising her.
you don't see, I don't remember seeing in the scenes where they were like in their home with these people. I don't remember seeing. There's a scene where after she leaves, the dad, Leo, right, he's leaving with the baby, right, to protect the child, and it's a bunch of Black women. I don't see any Black men helping there, right? So that
In the
implies
same way,
to
they
me,
end up taking that daughter when she's older to another place where it's all Black women.
right, it's all Black women doing the work. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so that implies to me that she wasn't around Black men at home, which I don't know how much that matters.
And she also wasn't exposed to. It doesn't seem she was necessarily exposed to a nurturing environment that we often think of for
right. It's all about
mothering.
fighting. It's all
Right.
about fighting. And so now she has this baby that she's expected to nurture. And how do you do that when your whole life has been a fight? And she has postpartum.
Clearly.
Right. That was very clear to me that she was dealing with some heavy postpartum, and that
Yeah, me
was the
too.
trigger for her leaving. So, and that wasn't again, that wasn't what upset me. What upset me was like at the end of the movie, you have this 17-year-old biracial girl.
This sexualization with the
No,
okay.
not even that. Not
Yeah,
even
okay.
that.
I'm so excited. Okay, I
At the
keep interrupting.
very, very end, her dad, fucking adult male, is at home smoking weed and she's going to a protest.
Mhm.
And it's like, what's wrong with this picture? Like, this was his life that he chose to raise his child in.
Brought her
And
into.
now he can't do anything but sit at home and smoke weed and be a nervous wreck for the entirety of the 2 hours of the movie, or most of the 2 hours of the movie, right?
I found him absolutely unbearable to watch. It was so annoying. My husband and I both were just like, he is so annoying. And maybe he's meant to be. And I don't know, that's part of it. It's like, okay, so maybe that also speaks to, is that part of the commentary that the white man then sits around and does nothing and is expecting yet again for the black women to
A
continue to
black
do
woman
all
to
the
do the
work?
work. Yeah. Yeah,
But is
for
that
me, it felt like
commentary or is it falling short? I don't know. I can, as I'm talking about it, sometimes I'm like, well, then maybe it is. Maybe it is better than I think it is. And then I'm like, something about it just doesn't feel right.
and she saved herself.
Mhm.
The child saved herself, like, ends up saving herself at the end. So that to me was just like, "Oh, yeah, of course, it's always up to Black women to just do the labor and, and
Mhm.
whatever." And so it felt like after suffering through all of the triggers in the movie to, like, end on that note, felt like it felt fucking disrespectful, honestly. It was like, you're gonna put us through all of that, and then at the end, just, like, take us back to where we started. Which, I mean, if you wanna say that that's, like, a commentary on our current, political landscape, how the world works, yeah, sure, that's how the world works, but, like, the whole point of I think any kind of artistic endeavor is not necessarily just to point out like what's happening with the world, but also to like provide opportunities for people to see how to create a different world, how to create a better world. Like it's not just here's a fucking mirror so you can look at everything. It's also like, okay, now how do we build from there? And I think for something that is supposed to be satirical or commentary, like I will say I don't know enough about that genre to be have any kind of expert opinion on whether or not it hit the mark or it fell short. But as just a viewer, as a Black woman who lives in the fucking United States of America, like it felt disrespectful at the end. And so people just like going on and on about it. I was like, okay, yeah, I mean it was well made, like production value, it was well made. The acting was incredible.
Regina was amazing,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
getting very little attention, which is too bad.
Right.
She didn't have a lot, but when she showed up, she
Oh
was
my god, she stole the screen.
absolutely.
Stole the screen. And Benicio del Toro, I
Mhm.
think, his role was, like, amazing,
I heard
but
many people say, "I would rather see a movie about that Underground Railroad sort of situation that he
yes.
was running than
Yes.
anything else in this
Anything
movie."
else. Yeah.
Like, give us
Yeah.
that movie because that looked
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Well,
yeah, it
speaking
just
of, like, whether we're the right people to talk about this, I think if you're a viewer, you're the right person to talk about it, right? Like, I think we can talk about our experiences. As far as expert opinions, I did listen to, and I'll try to find the link, Feminista Jones, who is our Dr. Michelle Taylor. Her whole background is on specifically these things. She looks at cinema. She wrote her PhD around portrayals of Black women in cinema, I think Black mothers specifically. And she had a lot to say, and none of it was positive really about this movie other than particular acting. Like some of these Black women did amazing jobs of acting in what they were given. And
yeah.
so I'll try to share some of that for people who want that lens. My thought is I think the reason it's feeling falls short to me, like whereas his and hers feels like commentary, like I think it's because it's flipping things on its head in a way inside of
It's
his and hers.
subversive.
Right. Whereas this feels like it's just relying on the tropes and then turning around and saying, well, I knew they were tropes, so it's commentary. Like
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating the tropes. And it's like, and maybe if it was a Black woman who was doing that, but I don't think the tropes are exaggerated enough to make it
Yeah.
feel like it is
It doesn't feel
intentional.
subversive. It
Yeah,
doesn't
it
feel
feels like
subversive
it's
at
just
all.
relying on the tropes and then trying to turn around when you get called out and be like, "Well, I know that they're tropes." It's like a commentary about it. And if it is, it doesn't read that way. It feels because then ultimately who gets the bulk of the screen time here? It's a white man. It's Leonardo DiCaprio. It feels like it's his story. So if you're trying to tell me you're being subversive and you're flipping things on their head or you're shining a light and you're exaggerating it, then why are we getting his story? Why is he the center
Mhm.
of this? This
Yeah.
bumbling idiot that I have to
Yeah.
watch for 2 hours running around in a fucking robe. My husband and I kept saying, "Take off, like, why are you not taking off the
Why do you
robe?
still have that robe on?
You're trying to run and get away from people, and you've got this robe you're gonna trip over, and everyone can see you because you look like the dude from that stupid movie I can't think of right now that my husband The Big Lebowski. I'm just like, "Take off the robe!" I get that was probably part of the look and the satire, but it was just I don't know, it just fell so short to me, where I was just like, I feel like you are just dishing out one trope after another without any sort of exaggeration of it, without any challenging of it, and you're a white dude doing that. Like, I just think you can't separate the art from the artist in this way to say, well, if it was a Black woman, would you feel different? Probably. I probably
Yeah.
would feel different, but I also think she would have handled it differently. I don't think
Yeah.
the material would have looked the same. And I
Yeah.
think that's the problem, because it was in the hands of a white man, whether you're married to a Black woman or not, whether you have Black kids or not. This feels like that example to me where it's like people will try to say, but I'm married to a Black woman, so I can't be racist. I have
So
Black
it's
kids. You can't,
okay.
right. I can't be racist. And it's like, that doesn't excuse you delivering something that to me is just dishing out racism.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
The
don't know.
other thing too is like, we were talking about motherhood and his and hers and with Tiana's character, Profit? What's her name?
Perfidia. Perfidia.
Perfidia?
It has, apparently he's a big fan of choosing names that have meaning, and Perfidia means something that I don't remember
Hmm.
what, but
Hmm.
warrior.
And her representation of Black motherhood, in the film. But I think there's also like just like this piece where like the child is having to mother her dad. Like she's taking care of him. She's like getting
Talking about
things.
that generational trauma, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to see these depictions of like motherhood from like these two different lenses.
Because I'm
And
here for challenging the belief that motherhood has to look a certain way, and that women are supposed to inherently want to be with their children, and like I that notion in itself, like, I like the idea of challenging it, but why are we using a Black woman here to challenge that
yeah,
notion when it's
yeah,
only feeding into beliefs that people already have?
yeah,
If that were a white woman who abandoned her child to go fight in this revolution or something, and was not made to look like she was the hero, but like
yeah,
that would be a very different story, and one that I might have been like, okay, now that's subversive. That's challenging the norms that we
yeah.
have. But that's not what it looked like. Because
No, it's not challenging at all. It's just it's as a metaphor. Again, it's using a Black body to convey this message. So it feels, to take it back to like Audre Lorde and like uses of the erotic, like it feels pornographic. Like it's this use and disregard for this Black woman's experience and her fight and her struggle, not just as a Black woman, in the fight and in the struggle, but as a Black woman who is struggling with coming to terms of what it means to be a mother in the midst of a fight and a struggle. And how do you bridge the gap between those two things? How do you reconcile those two ideas, especially when you're wanted, you're married to a white man, right? And so it's just, yeah, it felt disrespectful. It felt
and
really
then the
disrespectful to me.
17-year-old at the end, the hypersexualization, they've got her legs spread, bound with this
Yeah.
man who's her father, like biological father, like
Who's
taunting
being
her,
weird. Yeah.
where it feels sexual. And it's like, again, it's this hypersexualization of young Black women, which is not even a trope, it's a reality. But like, this is this thing that he's using, but it doesn't feel like it's challenging it in any way. And it's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't really seen interviews with Paul Thomas Anderson. I'd be interested to know how because there's a lot of critique. The accolades are largely are coming from white folks
Of course they
who I
are.
think, right, at least inside of the Black community that is feminist, that is, intersectional, that is revolutionary. I don't hear a whole lot of way to go, other than like, we respect Regina's performance, Tayana's performance, like these women
Yeah.
that good, except
Yeah.
why in these roles? Like, why not, particularly with Tayana, there's a movie called 1000, oh shit. Well, anyway, and she's a mother. I'm going to find the name of it real quick. 1001, where she plays a mom whose kid is in the foster system, and her struggles with that and everything. But it's Feminista Jones again talks about like, this is specifically her area of study as a PhD around depictions of Black women and mothering. And she's like, that role should have won her the Oscar, right?
Mm.
Not a role like this that's just feeding into all of the beliefs
Yeah.
that people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which leads us to Sinners. Let's end there. And I only don't have ton of time because I lied. Now I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I don't love vampire movies. I don't like scary things. Like the supernatural aspects of it, I get them, and they're like, it's not my cup of tea. That said, There is one scene in particular in this movie that for me, like, even if I hadn't liked any other parts of the movie, and I did, but even if I hadn't, I would have been like, that almost moved me to tears. And it's not about me. It's not about my people. It's not about my experience. It's not about my pain. And I still was moved by it. So I can only imagine how people for whom it was actually speaking to directly it would
Yeah.
feel, which is that scene, the dance scene in the dance hall with the generations of people coming through.
The
And
different
just
music.
yeah, and the way it speaks to generational trauma and healing was absolutely gorgeous, handled so I thought so masterfully. The whole movie speaks to a lot of that, and then that scene just is like, it's like in your face speaking to it, and I thought it was really, really, really well done.
Yeah.
And again, I felt like it felt very much like, you tell me if I'm way off base here, but it felt like a movie that was saying, "This movie isn't for you, and I'm not even gonna apologize that it's not for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you enjoy it, great. I'm not making it for you." And I liked that about it, right? Like, I loved that it was like, because it's confronting and challenging for me as a white person to watch it and be like, this movie is not for me, and I don't think they give a shit because I'm so used to being so centered. And I thought it was really great. So I really, really, really loved Sinners as somebody who fully expected to not like it because I thought it was gonna be scarier. It wasn't scary
It
anyway.
wasn't
Like,
scary at all.
I thought it
There
was
were a
going
few
to
jump
be.
scare moments, but
I had one really big where my husband laughed at me. He's like, "Oh my god, they got you big time," because I don't. But it was only because I was expecting something different. It was, when he was locked in the room and we knew he had turned into a vampire. But anyway, but I thought I genuinely didn't think I was going to like it only because of the type of movie it was, right? Like
yeah.
this whole
Yeah.
vampire thing. And I loved it. So what's your thoughts on Sinners?
Actually, that was one of my least favorite scenes.
Which part? Was it too obvious then or something? Maybe I needed that level of obvious.
And again, for me, it just goes back to just like, if I get the point of that scene and I appreciate the point of that scene. I think I'm not sure if it could have been communicated any differently from the choices that Ryan Coogler made for that particular scene. And so I get that, but it wasn't a scene that it felt that scene felt a little campy to me. But the whole movie is a bit campy. So
And I feel like going back to his and hers. Yeah, because this feels parallel in a way, not at all in execution or whatever, but like it does feel intentionally. I don't know if his and hers was meant to be intentional. That's, I think, maybe the difference.
but
This felt
Sinners felt
intentionally.
intentionally campy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that was a choice made to just kind of add a little bit of levity to it because it is a very heavy movie. It could have been more scary than it was, and so I think some of those, like, that sense of, like, camp is there to just kinda help ground it so you
Well, I
don't
wonder if it also
feel.
speaks to where I feel like one battle after another falls short, where I think it takes itself too seriously. And then because of that, we end up taking it more seriously and it doesn't feel like commentary. Whereas Sinners to me, because it was so sort of over the top,
So
it felt like
surreal.
and it felt intentionally so, it did feel more
Yeah,
like commentary and
yeah,
almost satire. Now, I know it's
yeah,
not, it
yeah,
probably isn't intentionally satire, but like
yeah,
that degree of like, hey, if we amp this up to 20, then you're gonna know, like, we're saying we get this,
yeah,
whereas one
yeah,
battle after
yeah.
another doesn't feel like we're saying we get.
It felt like having a conversation about what was happening in the movie as opposed to just, like, sitting back and watching. It felt like you were a part of the conversation.
Mm.
There's so many interesting layers to that movie, right? Because we have the main white character who is a vampire, but he's Irish. And if you know anything about US history, right? Like, you know that the Irish, like,
We're
they're
not
called the
white for
Irish
a very
blacks
long
for a
time.
reason.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were
like,
not white.
they were not considered white because of their immigrant status in the
Correct.
US. And
Which
so,
is very interesting in this moment to also be thinking about, yes, where
yeah,
we're relearning. White people who didn't learn these lessons are starting to quickly relearn that there is hierarchy to whiteness as well.
yeah, yeah. So what it's interesting because it's like at some point in the movie, I forgot the character's name, but like he's not, obviously he's a vampire, right? He's malicious, but he like communicates to them. Like he talks to them, he's like, I'm offering you something here. I'm offering you a sense of power, right?
What they will never give you. Right.
That they will never give you. But if
What's
I
the
forgot
buff?
the twins, their names, but Smoke and
Smoke
Stack.
and thank you,
Smoke
Smoke
and
and
Stack,
Stack.
yeah. Yeah. But if they take him up on that offer, like they're still under the provenance of another white man, right? Regardless of where he fits on the hierarchy
Just
of
the better
whiteness.
white man.
A
Right.
better white man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so there's like all these like layers about like what it
Yeah.
means to be white in the South
Well, and
at
then
this
Haley
time.
Steinfeld, that the character she plays, who is like, they say, no, she's part of our family. She's one of us. Even
Yeah.
though the white folks are like, wait a minute, isn't she one of us? Right? Because she's
Yeah.
straddling that line of being somebody who is, I think, I don't remember which of her parents was white, but she had a white parent and a black parent. And I
Mhm.
think she had a black mom, didn't she? I feel like it was
Yeah.
a black mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a
But
black
anyway,
mom.
and that added this whole interesting piece to it too. But I love what you just shared. That was, I hadn't really thought about that, but that was really interesting. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I think, the main takeaway for me, it felt like a film about obviously about so many different things, but, like, the one thing that was just glaringly obvious to me was about just, like, music. Like, it felt like a film celebrating not music in and of itself, but, like, the role that music and artistic creative endeavors have played in the history of Black people and how they have, like, culturally evolved over time and used music and art as a means to, like, express and, like, deal with, like, the trauma that's happening because it's part of a guitar that kills the vampire in the end, right? Like, it's the music, and then you
And the
see.
culture, because I think the music also speaks to this larger thing that I think as a white person I see from the outside with that I often see black folks saying, which is like, I did it for the culture, right? Like
Mhm.
there's this experience that I think white people will say, like, what is white culture? And white people will be like, oh no, like in my mind, it's mashed potatoes. Like, what's white culture? There, right? We don't have that. Whereas there is this like very strong sense of, again, this collectivist feeling of like, I'm not
Mhm.
doing this for me, I'm doing it for the culture. I'm doing it for my history, my ancestors, like these things that I think white folks don't experience because we haven't had to
Yeah.
save ourselves in the same ways. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's interesting. It's like the music is also in my mind representative both of music, but then just of like culture making and the importance of
Yeah.
culture
Yeah. Yeah.
in
It's
community.
part of the culture for sure, and I think it was interesting for him to make some of the main characters like the Asian family as well. There's a
Hmm.
scene in the beginning where it's just like one shot and it moves throughout the entire town from like the different stores that the Asian family owns, and that is my favorite scene in the entire
And
movie
that it's
because it's just like,
literally a different side of the street,
yes,
right?
and
That's
it's
the white
one
side.
shot.
Yeah, and then you see the white
One
side of the
shot.
street and then the other side of the street, which I think
Yeah.
is very interesting, just that sort of metaphor and what it speaks to as well. And
Yeah.
the Asian families are important because that's real part of history, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
because they
at that time.
the Chinese Immigration Act for,
Mhm.
like, building the railroads, like, that was a big deal, like, in the East Coast, but particularly in the South at that time, and the depiction of I forgot which twin, the mom, like, because they lose again, spoilers, they lose a
We were
child.
yeah.
Yeah, one of the twins, like, and that's why it's implied that that's one of the reasons why they left, right? That was one of the triggers for them leaving, but him and his partner, they lose a child, and so
Well,
there's
and
this.
she goes down this path of spirituality
Mhm.
and different ways of looking spirituality than
Indigenous
just
spirituality, yeah.
correct, and I think he can't accept that, sort of like he's more of this, like, hating God and being angry about it.
Mhm.
I mean, there's richness in all of that as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was a scene where, like, towards the end where, somebody starts saying the Lord's Prayer. And I just remember sitting in the theater and people were like, "Yes." And I was like, "That's not gonna fucking save them." And it doesn't. It doesn't. Because that is a white man's religion, right? And the Irish man says that, right? Because like the Irish vampire, like he's not coming from a lens of like Irish Catholicism. He's coming from like pagan Irishness. And so he's like, that is a colonial tactic, like that's a colonial tool,
Yeah,
like that's not going to save
yeah.
you from me. It's the black culture, it's that
I would say
music
who's the
which is
first one that
rooted.
notices? The first one who
Yeah.
really understands what's happening is the woman who's grounded in these indigenous practices.
Mhm. 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 And that blues music, right, that is so prevalent for most of the film, like, comes that has its roots in, like, those spirituals that the enslaved would sing on the plantations, which has its roots in indigenous music from the peoples of Africa, right? So, like, again, it's this ancestry, it's this idea of like ancestry and this groundedness in like who you are culturally, not who has been projected onto you by an enslaver or a colonizer or whatever. And so it's just, again, so many layers. Like there's the race, the class, the religion, right? Because the main character, like his dad is a preacher in the South. And so
And wants him to
he's like,
become one.
he wants him to become one, but he
Yeah.
likes music, right? Which
Right.
is
The devil's
representative
music.
of devil music, which is representative of, this indigenous culture. And so
Mhm.
it's like, again, so many
Yeah.
layers, like such a good
I
job.
you think I wouldn't have thought of this till now, but as you're talking about the Chinese American presence in the movie and the person that actually ends up inviting in all the hell that breaks loose. So the person who costs them so much is the Asian woman. And I wonder if there's something to that as well of like, again, going back to the, like, who you can who really is who we can trust as a culture and who we can't. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I am curious. Like, we bring her into the fold, we trust her until she proves that you can't necessarily still trust her, even though she is probably more trustworthy than the white man. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't know, and I don't know if that was intentional, so I don't mean to bring that in if it's
No,
not.
I
But
think
it's
it was.
interesting.
I think it was because there's also a scene where, before her husband gets turned, where he's like, "We should stay. We should help," and she's like, "This isn't our fight. Like, we have to get home to our daughter." And so, like, I think because the vampire threatens their daughter, right? And that's what motivates her to just like invite them in, but then she also sacrifices herself, right, to like kill
She
one of the
does, and I don't
vampires.
it felt a little less like at that point, I don't know. I don't that felt like it wasn't she was choosing to sacrifice herself as much as she was just, like, stupidly thinking she could fight. I might be wrong. Maybe she was like, "I'm gonna sacrifice myself," but
No,
she's doing
I
it at the
think
cost of everyone else.
she was doing it for her daughter. Like, I think everything she did was motivated by her love for her daughter. And so I think that speaks to this idea that, like, allyship,
Only goes so far.
for some people, it can only go so far, right? Like, that everyone has a line in terms of, like, what they're willing to sacrifice, right?
Mhm.
For the greater good or for, like, a common goal. And so, and for her, the line was her daughter. Like, she just, whether or not that's a choice that we agree with or that we could say is a good choice or a bad choice or ethical or moral or not, like, I think, again, this depiction of motherhood, right? That's like, what are you willing to put on the line as a mother in this fight? Like, are you willing to sacrifice your child or are you going to like sacrifice the whole for your child? And so, um, yeah, it was a very, very, I have a hard time with campy movies that aren't from
Me
the
too.
80s. Like, if it's from the 80s, I'm like, sure, it's camp, whatever. It's the 80s. Everything was
Well, that's
campy
where
in
I
the
think
80s.
vampire to me always just almost feels camp even when it's not because it
Yeah.
doesn't feel realistic to me, so it
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
so over the top,
But
but
I
again,
do
it's
love vampire movies and I do love Ryan Coogler movies. And so,
where do you come down on
like,
Sinners? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you like
I
it?
did
Not
love it.
cool.
Not for the I loved it for what it represented, not for itself just in general. You know what I mean? Not for its inherent, not that it wasn't a worthy movie or anything like that, but I love the ability to have this type of conversation because I've seen that movie.
Which is what I felt about His and Hers. Although I think Sinners to me was better than that. I think it does
Yeah.
succeed more than that does. Would it be the kind of movie I would ordinarily say that's an Oscar movie? No, probably not, because typically for me, when I think about Oscar movies, I think about things that really move me, like emotionally, where I don't feel
Mm,
like this moved me emotionally for me. And that might be because, again, it's not centering my experience. So I
mhm,
fully understand that. But it moves me intellectually. And I love that. So on
mhm.
that level, I do think. And when I compare it to what it's getting nominated against and losing against, which is one battle after another, to me, it's night and day, right?
It is.
I don't see how I don't know that either of those would be movies that I would ordinarily say. Then again, I don't see a lot of movies anymore. I used to be a big movie person, and now I'm more TV.
Mhm.
But but when you compare the two, it just seems so obvious to me. One, it succeeds really well at what I think they are both trying to do, and I think one falls really
Oh, yeah.
hard and doesn't deliver.
Sinners was by far the better, like, creative, versive.
and
the
just even just
suit.
on
Yeah.
commentary and
Yeah.
intellectually, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's frustrating because I mean, I love all the memes I keep seeing where Black people are sharing of, like, just the reactions, even of Michael B. Jordan of just sitting there like, again, of
Mhm.
course, right? And how it literally proves you work twice as hard for half the results. Like, you played,
Yeah.
like, or some people even say 3 characters if you count the vampire version of the one character. It's like 3 characters and getting, nominated and not getting anything. It is frustrating. But then again, as frustrating as I get, it's also like, who do we think is awarding things?
Yeah.
I'm sure in
Yeah.
essence it's gonna win everything, right? But when you're at the Golden Globes or the Oscars or whatever, they're being chosen by largely white folks. I think one battle after another makes them feel a little better because it allows them to
It does.
continue to believe some of the things they want to believe.
It's enough for them to say, we see what's happening without having to actually challenge anything or do anything differently, right? It's like, it's that bare minimum. It's that, like
Because
that.
you
And
get
that's what it
censored.
felt like.
Yeah,
One
the
battle
white
after
man
another
gets
felt like the
censored in
bare minimum.
yeah. One battle after another is centering the white man, and it is speaking to, I think, white people. And Sinners, as I said, like, I felt like it intentionally was telling me this is not a movie for you. If you're here, great. If you enjoy it, great.
Yeah.
I don't care. And that is confronting and challenging. And if you're
Yeah.
a white person watching that, it may then, again, going back to, like, is it the movie I would award an Oscar? Because did it move me personally? No, right? But it wasn't meant to. Did
Yeah.
it succeed in what it was meant to do? I think so.
Yeah.
I think based on its own rubric of what it was supposed to accomplish, it's a 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
right? Is that the rubric I would say makes it feel like an Oscar movie to me? Probably not, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
And that I think is what's unfortunately the problem is the people who are
Yeah.
judging
I mean,
the people.
that brings up another question though about one battle after another. Then in my mind, it's like, is it a commentary on the whole ness of everything that's happening, or is it a commentary on white manhood?
And if it's a commentary on white manhood, does it succeed? See, this is where I go back to, like, maybe there are parts of me that I can sometimes be swayed to say, maybe it is succeeding in a way, right? Because, yeah, there he is just sitting on the couch, getting high while the Black women are doing all the work. And, like, that feels real and important. And yet
And
there's just something
he's
that doesn't
also
sit right.
ridiculous. He's also ridiculous, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's like, is this a, I mean, obviously it can be more than one thing, but is part of what it is making fun of white men for their ridiculousness and how they choose to show up in these movements.
But
Even in that first scene in the beginning when he shows up and he's like, "Yeah,"
I know.
it's like, dude,
Inept.
just get in the fucking car and leave. Like, do you want to get caught? But
He's
it's
coming with
still, like you said, at the expense.
a little red wagon, like, running as obvious as he can be, and, like, I mean, the little red wagon does speak to, like, this is a man-child, and I do feel
Yeah.
like he is a man-child throughout the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So, yes, I do okay, maybe his part is successful, and guess why I think that might be? Because it's a white man who wrote and directed him, right? Or
Yeah.
wrote and directed
Yeah.
that part. The white man, I think, doesn't do as well at the rest of the parts that aren't about white men. Like,
Yeah.
Lockjaw's
Yeah.
ridiculous and over the top too. I think as much as I despised him, I think I was meant to, and I think that was maybe more successful as well. And
Hmm.
even Benicio del Toro, not a white man, but a man, that character felt better.
Yeah.
It's really I just don't know that he should be writing Black women.
Yeah. 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 I
I don't know.
agree.
And despite being married to one, I get it, but I think it just continues to prove that doesn't give you a permission slip.
License. That doesn't give you free license to exploit the experiences of Black people, especially Black women and Black mothers.
Being
Yeah.
married being married to a Black woman doesn't actually make you a Black woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanna tell people, Sinners is apparently coming back into the theaters at the end of this month, shortly after this comes out. I think the 27th or 23rd, something like that. So
Hmm.
look it up. If you haven't seen it yet, or you haven't seen it in a theater, which I didn't, and I might be inclined to go see it in the theater because it's a different experience, obviously, than
Yeah.
watching it on your TV. So you can look that up and go see it if you wanna see it in that full cinematic experience before the Oscars come, even though it will lose at the Oscars. Bold prediction, I don't think it's gonna win at the Oscars, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. So
We don't know what we're gonna talk about next week. but we'll see where the winds blow us.
Yeah.
See you then. Thanks for listening to Messy Liberation.
Thank you so much for your support and for listening today.
Until next time.